I had the opportunity to work with the LTG grant project, and my students really benefited from their ability to have choice and freedom in exploring many different models of projects. They were able to choose a topic from which they were passionate, and oftentimes students said to us after the projects were over that they felt their interest encouraged further exploration.
So the goals of the technology grant came from two places. New York State issued the RFP so that we had to pay attention to culturally responsive practices and the use of technology.
So the thing that I learned that was most impactful was teaching second grade, being sure to understand what the students can already do before getting started, and starting earlier in the year introducing the different types of technology, and that way every student gets the understanding of how to use all the different technology that is going to be available to them, because not every student is going to use all those technology platforms. And if you wait until you're doing it during the project, then what ends up happening is only some of the students get the advantage of that mini lesson on how to use the technology.
Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES paid attention to the needs in the region, and the needs in the region pointed to quality assessment practices.
We were fortunate to start with a sizable number of teams across our region, most of whom were able to continue throughout the life of the grant. And one of the elements we built into the grant that was really very special in this cohort was the ability to run two different groups of teachers through the grant and their associated leaders. So we had 2 years worth of work for our first cohort that allowed us to really refine the process, make some changes, and our final year of the grant was built out to allow for more design time, but also a little bit kind of shorter in the overall structure, because one of our hopes was that at the conclusion of the grant, we'd be able to build opportunities tied to this work for other educators in our region to continue the exposure of these great opportunities for students across the lower Hudson Valley.
Part of this project about growth mindset, they interviewed someone in their own lives. They got to see another side of, maybe it was their grandma who came over from Germany 50 years ago and had a tough time getting used to life in America. I think the authenticity really added a lot to our project.
So really what we did was we combined the state goals with the regional goals, and the real focus of this grant was to design authentic projects that would allow us to embed culturally responsive practices and to use technology naturally.
So here's what you'll do. You're going to learn together, you're going to design for your students, and you have lots of choices about what that design looks like. We'll get more into that tomorrow. You're going to implement with your students, and then you're going to come back with your kids' work at the end of the year. Take a look at that work carefully, revise, and plan for the work going forward.
So we've had teachers from grades 1st grade through 10th and 11th grade working on authentic projects. Some have been in the realm of civics, and they have blended literacy and civics. Some have been connected to science and literacy. Some have been math-based. But in all cases, the students are really doing research and producing work around whatever topics they chose to investigate.
My students benefited from this authentic project because they were able to collaborate, to see their teachers collaborating, and create different products that they selected and were passionate about.
The 3 goals of our Learning Technology Grant were to look for participants to develop and design authentic tasks that also were really accessible to learners, and to be able to implement them with fidelity. And that was one of the reasons why it was so important for our participants to participate as teams of both teachers and leaders. And then our third goal was to also embed culturally responsive and linguistically responsive elements into their design, so that all students could really take part in the learning and benefit from the experience. And we were able to meet those goals, which was so great to see.
Your models can't be matching the content the kids are working on, but they need to match the authentic performance task that they're engaged in, whatever you've decided that is in each of your projects.
I usually show an exemplar project before they do a project to guide them, but in math, it's not until we're deep into it.
That's what I'm saying, 'cause the nature of a subject, sometimes you don't want to give away the answer. You want them to get there themselves.
So once we learn the procedures, then we examine different problems and look for errors or different strategies.
Which I guess kind of you could make that argument, right? That's a model.
One of the values of having the regional component and having these 14 districts participate in a consortium is that teachers and leaders get to really learn what other districts are doing. They get feedback from very different perspectives. So you could have a high school math teacher getting feedback from an elementary school teacher who maybe teaches 2nd or 3rd grade, and they have very, very different perspectives on what they see in the classroom.
So I want you to go to a set of posters and use just one poster and put a line down the middle on one poster. On one side, write down all the things you can think about that is valuable about models and criteria for students, and then all the things you can think about for teachers.
It allows you almost to see, it allows you to see the bigger picture and also kind of revise, allow you to do better revision, right? Because you write it down, allow you to do better revision.
And nothing is hidden.
Yeah, you're
You know what
right.
I mean? It's
There's
very
a transparency,
transparency, right? It's very transparent.
Yeah, transparent for both teachers and students.
Yeah.
There's a level of transparency. You cannot say oops.
So an authentic project is work that we ask students to do that places them in the roles of professionals outside of schools. So they're working for real audiences and purposes, they're doing research, they're collaborating with others, they have to revise their work to meet very high standards, and there's a high thinking demand, which is an equitable practice as well.
So what allowed us to meet the goals of the project? Well, part of it was making sure that teams really understood the requirements of the project, right? And for organizations, schools, BOCES, other groups who were trying to or interested in replicating this work, making sure that requirements were really clear would be incredibly important. What was also really helpful for us was designing the project in a way so that multiple cohorts of educators could take part. We're able to design the project over 2 years for our initial cohort, making sure that we provided enough time for participants to design and implement and provide feedback. And then we took that feedback after those first 2 years and were able to restructure the project so it could fit into 1 year. That also allowed us as a BOCES to be able to think about how we might continue from a sustainability standpoint this work into future years. What were some of the obstacles? Time is always a challenge, right? And making sure that members of teams were able to participate from one session to the next. And for that first cohort over the 2 years was something that we had to work really, really hard to help in making happen. Another challenge, of course, is design time. And one of the lessons we learned throughout this experience was that our participants really wanted more design time. And so from our first cohort to our second, we're able to add to the design time so that participants felt like they could really effectively design those authentic tasks and implement them with fidelity.
We have a student who is studying narwhals who now wants to perhaps pursue marine biology, and a student who is studying black holes who said that he now wants to explore opportunities with NASA. So I feel like this project was expansive beyond the classroom, and what better way should we as teachers seek to teach and to inspire?